Hello and welcome to In the Light, Growing Your Soul with me, Anna Isabel. And I am so excited because today we're going to be talking about an extra special book. And my guest is Ellen Cohn. Hello, Ellen.
Hello, how are you?
Very well and welcome. Your beautiful book is called Be Like the Wind. And I say it's your beautiful book, but
Oh,
uh,
thank you.
more of that in a minute. More about that in a minute. First of all, you are an animal communicator, and
Yes, I am.
I'd love to know how you got into that.
Okay, well, I would say it was kind of the back door in a way because I was doing some hands on work on a horse many years ago. And my client, who happened to be a good friend, said to me, ask Toby how he hurt himself because he had this weird L shaped tear in his lower back. So in my head, I said, how'd you hurt yourself? And I hurt myself in turnout, which was not the answer neither one of us were expecting because she and I had been in a clinic about a week before and she had said, look at the bruise on my leg. He spun. Maybe this is how he hurt his back, but that's not the answer he gave. Then I started asking people, did I make that up? Did it come from the horse? Like, where did that come from? Because I wasn't in my conscious mind. People said, no, you heard the horse. Oh, and then I began looking into it. I started reading books and then I took class because I was like, there is something to this.
That's absolutely brilliant that you just asked and you got an answer. And is it something that you had ever thought about, that you could have this telepathic link with animals?
No way. No way.
Mm. But
And
you
I
were
guess,
working.
yeah, I've had it my whole life, but a lot of the people who have been interviewing me were like, did you know this as a child? No, no.
But you were working with horses at the time, and I suspect that you were already tuning into them as part of your work.
Yes. I mean, it isn't about me. So I'm going to put that out there right now. But as a vessel for spiritual, God energy, source energy, when you see results with hands on healing or remote healing, that alone tells you there's another reality or another world out there that works, that heals. Same thing happened with a dog in my next door neighbor. And I'm trying to remember if I asked the dog. I think I did. I was working on one dog who had a torn ACL. She was champion, competitive, like agility dog. And she had this huge surgery. And I was working on her and she used to climb in my lap. She was an Australian Shepherd. And the other dog in the family was a show dog, like a prissy. And the other dog told me she didn't want to be a show dog. She wanted to hang out with the three boys in the backyard and be a companion. And I told my neighbor, I don't remember the dog's name, this is probably over 20 years ago, that she didn't want to be a show dog. And you're already in the pipeline for like the nationals. She said, all right, I'll retire her. Tell her I'll retire her after she gets the championship. She did not retire her. She kept going. And then we moved, et cetera, et cetera. But the woman did not honor what she told her dog. The other dog, the agility dog, in spite of this plate in her hip, she also went on to win something huge in her category. So both those examples speak to the same thing. There's something else out there that can heal. But again, the human didn't honor that. And in my work, if you're saying to somebody, please don't do that job with your animal and they pursue it, they could have a wreck of some sort. You know, there's a contract and it's really important to honor it, my opinion.
Well, really, it used to be that our word was our bond. I don't know where that went with many people, but um, maybe she didn't take you seriously, you know? maybe she was being facetious. So she clearly had no intention of listening to you. So now the title, Be Like the Wind. And I haven't told the audience yet what makes this book so extra special. And I suspect that when you tell us about the title, that will come out.
Yes, it is a funny story, and it did start as a joke. The main horse that channeled the information, his name was Monty. He's in the spirit world right now, but in the day, 2015, I was out riding and I jokingly said, "So, what's your life advice for the day?" And I heard, "Be like the wind." And I was so completely taken aback by the way that it was phrased that I said, there's something more here. I've got to write this down, and I've got to start writing everything down with these horses because it's meant for something bigger. Well, not bigger, a book. So that's how it started. And then I dug around in past lives with them. And then Billy, who was also at that point in the spirit world, he started coming in and bringing me messages from many years prior. So it little by little, it kept unfolding, and it was spirit guiding the unfoldment. It wasn't me. Like, there's a triune, there's an equine council. I'm just the pen. I'm just the automatic writing human being. They are writing the book through me. That's really how it all came about. But it took 8 years to get published. It took a while.
So, okay, so what we're hearing is that this book has been channeled by three horses. Okay, that's going to take a little bit of explanation in a moment. Um, so, how long had you been working as an animal communicator at this point?
Hmm. Probably a good 10 or 12 years, full on. Because in the beginning, I was practicing and I was just putting it out. Send your animals to me. I want to know if I'm on or I'm off. So when I really added it in there to a professional resume, 10 or more years.
So you've been working as an animal communicator for some time. That that's wonderful. And then suddenly you're being told things and you realize that it's going to be a book. That's so exciting. Um, so coming back then, you mentioned an equine council. Can you explain that, please?
They told me that they were chosen by a council of beings that were mostly like unicorns, equines, elevated horse kind of beings that specifically selected the three of them in a synchronistic, chronological way, Billy, then Monty, and Romeo, to come forth to speak to the human race now through me. So there's a lot of little steps there, but they also were selected. And then I looked at the timing of when each horse came into my life and how it happened. And it just, I took some of it for granted along the way. Like when I met Billy and how he blew my mind, being such, I see your dog there, how he was such a funny spirit. He had an enormous sense of humor. And then Monty was almost dying when I found him. And Romeo was a Mustang living in the US prison system as thankfully a trainer's horse, but he was captured from the wild. So their stories are very individual, very different, but coming together, they make this triangle, this triune of unity that says we can do this. We can bring forth trauma, wounding, abuse, like we all have in our lives. We've all been through something. And they're showing us you can do it. You know, you can heal I have a donkey over here staring in the window because she's hearing me, and our young donkey just heard me and popped her face up. But anyway, life, when you open up to this world, becomes magical.
Well, it's certainly magical is a good word, particularly when you're throwing in the word unicorn.
Mm.
It's I'm sure that there are lots of ears that pricked up and eyebrows that were raised when you said that. Um, I think reading your book, it there is such beauty to it. Um, Maybe it would be good to get a sense of prior to the book, when you're communicating with horses, what are the sorts of things that you would have been talking about, so to speak?
That's a good question because we all have those clear senses. And I can refer to Monty where I could feel his pain. And he didn't right away like discuss it in words, but when I was around him, I could feel the trauma, and it would bring up my own fear. And then, the energy would feed off each other. And I had to learn a whole new way of being around him that wouldn't frighten him because of his experiences with humans. But eventually, like, especially in the book, I would sit down and get in a meditative state and say, show me a past life. And then I'd see a picture and I'd go, oh, that looks like the Crusades. And I'm not a history buff. Some of it I actually had to look up. And oh, you might be talking about that king and you were a stallion in that court. Yes. So I had to go and have a conversation around, do you mean this? Because there's thousands of years here and I have to pinpoint it and get a feel for what, your past lives look like. And in Monty's case, when he died really, really suddenly over the course of 3 days, he was black and shiny. The next day, he was standing there and he wasn't eating. I got the vet out. She said there's elevated white blood count. The next day, he was down and there was blood. And I was like, oh my gosh, I knew. So I hauled him to the vet, which was a huge deal. He didn't like to go in the trailer. And she said, there's so much blood, we don't even know what this is. And I brought him home. He got back in the trailer. I took Romeo. He got back. I said to him, if you don't get in the trailer and I can't take you home right now, I'm going to have to put you down in a cement parking lot and I can't bury you. So that was a conversation. He got in the trailer. And I grieved so hard. It took so many readings with a colleague to unfold 9 past lives. And that's now what I've woven into my clientele is when you're grieving so heavily, it's most likely you've had past lives together. And either something traumatic happened in a past life and you're reliving it, or you just didn't resolve that lifetime to a point of understanding, because we really don't have any control when they leave. It's not up to us.
No, and it's an interesting concept that you're introducing there because the attachment that some of us or many of us have to the animals in our lives is massive. And to when it comes to say goodbye, it's very, very hard, to say the least. It feels like an understatement to say that. Um, and and I think many people are used to the concept of sharing past lives with people,
Mm-hmm.
but sharing past lives with animals um, is new to many people. So it's a very interesting concept that you're introducing there. So
Mm-hmm.
I guess the other question that's coming to mind is one of different personalities. Um, are some horses chattier than others? Are some of a more philosophical bent? How do you, or is it more like a one mind? How does it?
Oh no, they're very different, and some are very willing. We have a new horse. He's not that new. He's been here a year. And as I get to know him, there is so much trauma there that I didn't see from the initial hello, how are you? And the longer he's here, the more it's unwinding. And I just started some new clicker training yesterday, and I'm going to keep doing it because he's not a young horse, but coming here to Great Life, it still startled him, and he went into his own version of shock, and his mane and tail fell out. It's growing back, but it's a huge improvement from my human perspective. But he's given me little one words like, you don't want to know what they did to me. Those kinds of answers when I walk in or near him with a muck fork and he's standing there frozen. I'm like, I'm never going to hurt you. And he's like, you don't want to know. So my Mustang has been but I've had him 12 years. So the more our lives unfold together, the more he shares. Billy, he would have shared anything because he was very funny. Like I said, he had a big personality. He wasn't traumatized. He hadn't really found his human, but he didn't have trauma. He was pampered. And oh, look, he was gorgeous. Like, look at that beautiful black thoroughbred. So he didn't have abuse, but he didn't have connection. So he was very willing to open up and be himself.
Yeah, well, and that's beautiful. And obviously, we can see that trauma is the same. Trauma is trauma, whatever species. The shock, the pain, the fear, are all there with whatever species experiences it. There was something, I think, in the second chapter of your book. There was a statement made by the horses that I thought was absolutely stunning, and I'm just going to read it. Treating others as though they are lesser creatures does not come from source. Too much resentfulness and victimhood govern your beliefs and actions. Blaming others for your own feelings of inadequacy and shame and guilt will not bring you the inner peace that you seek. And that statement really grabbed my attention because it is very much at the heart of the work that I do as a therapist with humans. It's helping people to actually take control back by not being stuck in blame and not being stuck in anger. Is a process that we have to go through to release that, to get rid of it. But it's vital precisely because of the result being peace. And to think that statement is coming from horses is quite a thing, because it's showing the depth of understanding of humanity that they have. So is it just these three that have given you nuggets like that? Or have you had other horses make observations in the past?
Most definitely, yes. And to broaden the answer, I think all animals and all creatures, and even if you really want to expand it, crystals, which have a consciousness, all things on earth see us very transparently. And those who are connected, perhaps dogs or cats, could receive those identical messages. Like, we see you. We see if you're authentic or not. You can't fool us. And if you come with an agenda, especially around horses who can be dangerous, not on purpose, but if you could get stepped on and break your foot, but they really see us. And therefore, if you go with a different agenda and you're angry, you're not going to connect. It's pretty clear. What I used to do in the day, and sometimes I still do, is say, I'm apologizing. I'm a little nervous today. Maybe I haven't ridden you in a month. So please excuse if I'm uptight or tense. And that helps. Same with the dog. I'm sorry, I'm having a really bad day. They'll get it, but say something because they can see it anyway. And they often don't need that apology, but it helps, my opinion.
No. Well, my belief is that Teddy knows everything. He knows everything. Um, this dog reads me like, the most open of books. And, our connection is very, very strong indeed. So, what you're saying is very clear. And anyone who lives with animals and has a strong connection with them will say exactly the same thing because they know that their dog, understands exactly what's going on. And so here it is with horses. Do they, I guess maybe I'm thinking about the fact that they are herd animals. Is there an extra sensitivity, do you feel, that they have as herd animals? Or maybe the question I'm asking is, are they connected to each other telepathically?
I believe so. I really do. Because not only the new boy out there, but we rescued a wild donkey. Let's see, we're going on 4 years when she actually came to our little farm in May, but I started in March with the government, a wild burro, and she had a foal here. We found out as she was being gentled, she was pregnant. So now we have her 3-year-old daughter, but we kept them in the back for a while. We had another horse that was really pretty mean. So once he died, we merged the herds, and it's made a big difference for the two little females feeling so connected to their horses, especially Romeo, the Mustang. He's like their father or their grandfather. So they hover around him. I feel like they think he protects them because he's so gentle. He shares his food with them. It's such a beautiful sight. He started losing weight. So I have to close one little gate while I'm feeding the grain because I don't feed them any grain. They just get hay, the donkeys. So I have a little gate. So when he's eating his grain, he gets his breakfast, sweep out the crumbs, open the gate, and they're together till dinner when I feed more grain. So it's just been, and I'm going to use the word magical again, watching them. It's just been beautiful, just beautiful. And because I know the mama donkey came from a very small herd in California, Arizona. I think there were wild Mustangs out there near her or with her. So she knew horses. She wasn't just in a donkey. They're called HMAs, herd management areas. So she's very, very happy. And the little one is been raised by us. So she's like a dog. She's fearless. So she never knew, out there life. She knows domestic life, but she's very happy anyway.
Have any of the horses spoken to you about what happens when they are passed on from person to person because they are sold, and how they feel about that connection being broken, given that they are so herd oriented and that there's this a strong bond that they have with others?
Yes. I mean, it can be a good thing on the human level if the soul contract isn't right between horse and human, but they do grieve their herd mates. That said, so many horses are stabled where they're boxed off They're not in my kind of situation. They're all out there together in a corral. They're not closed off, but in boarding stables, they may have a buddy next door and they may not. And there's one of my favorite homeopathics is Ignatia Amara. It's for grief. You're smiling, you know it. So yes, they can grieve. That could have been what happened to Blackie, our new horse. They were out in a giant field. They weren't treated well. I know what the humans were doing to them, but he had a herd. So part of his thing was grief. And I did give him Ignatia in the beginning, and maybe he needs another round of it. On and off, it's good to treat the grief because it can resurface over and over again.
That's very interesting, because obviously the reason I raised the question is because I can see that the failure of people to provide stable and long-term homes for horses
Mm-hmm.
could well lead to a great deal of grief. And I had just wondered whether any of them had spoken to you about this.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. That same horse that told me he got hurt in turnout, Toby, later his owner got a second younger mare and she had a degenerative something going on. My friend ended up putting the mare down, and Toby, the horse, grieved so heavily. We thought he was going to check out. I did a ton of work on him again, to energy work mostly, to explain to him it wasn't his fault. The other horse's name was Angel, and how loved he was and how Kim was grieving, because they pick up on our grief. And when Monty died so suddenly, Romeo and he were so connected. Romeo grieved. Romeo and I were going through a really stressful period. And in fact, we were out riding with a friend out here, and these people were walking their dogs on the other side of what we have, these islands in the road where there are lots of trees, and they were on the opposite side, and their dogs were leashed. But he saw something moving and he didn't know because they were behind the trees. He spooked. It could have killed me, because luckily I grabbed my left rein and I pulled him into what's called a one rein stop. So I had him and we were spinning and spinning. We were on the road, not, well, the paths around here are also very hard, but had I hit the road, I wear a helmet, I probably would have had broken bones, but I got him finally to stop. I got off. I was shaking. I walked him a ways down the road, got back on. My friend said, I can't believe you're getting back on. I'm like, well, we're really far from home. But that started for me clicker training, because he was spooking. Without his friend, his world collapsed. My world collapsed. He wasn't my main riding horse. I started clicker training with somebody in another state who was looking at videos and critiquing, and we developed a whole new relationship around trust. It's great. I carry my clicker when I ride, and I have him putting his nose on. He's not spooky anymore, but it scared me enough. I said, I either can't ride this horse or I have to do something, because he felt it. He felt the grief.
yes, indeed, he would. From the book, what do you feel is the most important theme or message that comes across?
I think there's several, but one of the main ones is going within ourselves. You have all the resources to heal. We have it within. Once we find that, we can connect to our God, our source, our quantum beliefs that show us a different way. But we have it. We can do it. Like you were saying, you take control of stop being the victim, become accountable for your life. You're in charge. And if you look at it as an empowerment versus a disability, then you can heal and you have those resources because our thoughts alone are energy. You have to govern what you're thinking. If you let your thoughts take over, they're just thoughts, but they carry energy. They're very, very powerful. So go within, find your methods of stillness and connection, starting from the inside out, guides, angels, crystals, energy work. There's so many things out there that you yourself can do to get healthy. And yes, you can rely on your pets, but they're not going to do it either. They're going to help you and they're going to guide you, but they're not, you're the most important self-care there is.
Yes, with the best will in the world. Um, Teddy is a wonderful teacher, in many respects, a great healer, but he has paws, and there's only so much he can do. And ultimately, even amongst humans or with other humans, there's only one expert on us, and that's us. And we need to discover who we are. And I think that comes across very clearly in your book as well. Is there something that you would recommend that people do if they want to start out on this beautiful journey of connecting telepathically with animals?
One of my favorite techniques, it's a Reiki technique, is putting one hand on the chest and one hand on the back of the neck on your animal and waiting to feel that throat chakra, heart chakra connection. Sometimes it'll vibrate, sometimes it'll be a light. You could start there and wait to feel it and know that you're connecting energetically and then start a conversation. Or you could look in their eyes, which I believe is the window to the soul. And don't be surprised if your animal goes, "Oh, what are you doing? Like you've never looked at me that way before." But yes, those two things could deepen your connection, or simply saying, "Talk to me." If your water bowl is empty, put a little bug in my ear and says, "Mom, I'm standing over here and you're not looking. My water bowl is empty." Oh, and your gaze goes to the water bowl. How did I know that? Well, you might have heard it, but you didn't know you heard it. There's so many little subtle ways to strengthen that. We have a big noisy dog. I talk to him all the time. I was rushing a little to get here because I'm in a separate area, and he started amping up. I'm like, "Pepper, not yet. Not yet, buddy. Not yet." "Okay, fine." He's just settled right down. "Not yet. We're not going anywhere." And those are my two words. Not yet.
No, and I like the suggestions, and I was just thinking about the eye contact, because sometimes with animals, eye contact can be deemed as threatening. So it would have to be if you already have a very strong connection with your animal, and that you already have eye contact, then I think that would work really well. Teddy does very occasionally, actually not so occasionally, but he does look into my eyes a lot. It's not so occasionally, it actually, come to think of it, that we have these moments where he really looks into my eyes. And of course, I look right back into his. And it's these moments of beautiful connection where I haven't picked up what he's saying, but I can feel what he's saying. And my cats have all done the same. That eye connection is something I recognize as you're speaking, because of the trust that's already there. And yes, I do remember my cats also, each of them, different points, would have started to do that. And it was just this look of, you know, And
But that's also because who you are, and it can take time. If you've rescued a dog or a cat, it could take years to unwind. And I tell people remove the timeline. It may not go on your human expectation. And that, again, what you were using in the beginning, that word attachment, when we're attached to those markers of what we consider success, then we're judging something. We're not surrendering to the process. And maybe a lot's going on the soul level that you can't see or feel. And when you remove yourself and you back off a little, sometimes it unfolds differently, faster, more beautifully. Like surrender is a huge word for us because, again, it's not up to us. And if we can appreciate those processes, whatever those are, like the other day, my husband walked in, we have the stalls are open, and Romeo and Blackie were together. And he walked in with the muck fork and he spooked Blackie, who I was sitting here and I heard a bang. And I jumped up and ran out. I'm fine. I'm like, well, it's probably not a good idea to go in there when they're both in there because one might run out, even though Romeo's not spooky, Blackie is. And then I thought, man, he's still spooky. That and this thought about let's restart some training around it. Because when I go in there, his eyes get so I can't look him in the eye.
mm,
Somebody did something to him. They either, poked him or chased him or tried to make him stand still because he's so rigid. He's just tense.
mm,
But there was a lesson right in front of us.
yeah.
And then Steve said, oh, I get so angry when I think what those guys did to him. And I'm thinking, yeah, but the anger is not going to do any good.
No, what he needs is soothing.
And
That's
apologies and constantly. And back to what you were asking me a moment ago, I try to be really consistent with each of them, like good boy, same tone, same two words. We did it with Monty in the beginning because he was starving to death. I couldn't get his feet trimmed. He would spin. So I didn't know about clickers in the day, but I would say, good boy. And I would hand him a peppermint. So he associated those two words with a peppermint. Oh, let me get a peppermint. He started holding, actually, they were butterscotches in the day, but he started holding still because he was anticipating the two words and the treat. So that can work with so many animals.
that is absolutely beautiful, Alan. Thank you so much for everything, for your time today. And a reminder to everyone that the book that we are discussing is Be Like the Wind. And although Ellen, I think we can say that Ellen is the co-author of this book, and just the beautiful messages in there, I think everyone needs to read them and consider them. Thank you again.
May I say one quick thing? It's not a direct
Of
plug for the
course.
book, but all the profits from the sale are going directly 100% to my nonprofit in the Bahamas, the Khon Foundation. Started 20 years ago, 22 years ago, to help the high kill shelter in Freeport. Because we used to travel there when our kids were little, and I would come home speechless. It was so bad, starving, sick, dead animals. So I've been helping them for 20 years, full on 501c3, and I'm sending every penny there to them. So if you buy the book, trust that your little $14 or whatever it is in England is going straight to a really good cause.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you. Now,
Thank
if
you.
people want to get in touch with you, how do they do that?
So I have two websites. I have Enlightened, ENLIGHTENED, animals.com. That's the comprehensive My psychic readings are in there, which are a bit different. I'm very trained in the psychic arts. And then I have a kind of a breakout sub website. It's called psychicjourneys.net. And, I'm finding if people just want a past life reading, I can break out some of my services, or end of life. That's already on there. I had one over the weekend. She wanted to know if her old dog was leaving. I do a lot of that, looking in different types of communications that people need.
Wonderful. Thank you. I'll be
Thank you, Anna.
Thank you. I'll be putting a link to both the websites and the book in the description box. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. And thank you all for watching. Next time, we're going to be talking about herbs and the seasons. Until then, goodbye.